Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top... wait a second, what's this doing here? Oh, I must have just left that out. I'll get that out of the way for you. This isn't part of the list. We'll just move that one. And oh, what was that? Oh, that's right, I have to get change. Does anybody have change for 1,000? Anyway, no, I'm just playing. That's what this top 10 list is about. These are my top 10 flex notes. What is a flex note? Well, if you are as old as I am, you probably had to look it up. No, the young'uns like to use the word flex when they talk about showing off. So yeah, when I've got a few notes that I'd like to show off with, that would be me flexing. And I wasn't going to just do any top 10 notes. I was going to do the top 10 graded flex notes. Not necessarily my top 10 most valuable, not necessarily my top 10 favorite, but the top 10 most impressive graded notes that I have. So when you want to show off just a touch, these are the notes you pull out. All right, number 10 on my list. Number 10, all of these are graded. This is my $500 bill. Now, a $500 bill and a $1,000 bill, if you are just getting started in collecting, these are some of the most recognizable notes that you can find. That's what makes these such a flex. The demand on these is through the roof. The prices are going through the roof. If you can get a hold of one of these, this is definitely a keynote in your collection. $500, especially being graded. This one actually came with a decent grade too, grade of 30. Generally speaking, you're talking about wanting to get notes, expensive notes in like a 20, at least. This one being a 30, yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. So number 10 on my list, my $500 graded note. Number 9 on the list. This is my 1862 $1 legal tender. Now, the impressive part of this is not that it's only the very first $1 bill produced by our country, but the fact that it's graded as high as it is, a 35 EPQ. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive for these notes. Usually you find a lot of these in a lot lower condition. To get a 35 with an EPQ, I checked on the list, and there's not very many of these at all. There's like 2 35 EPQs listed or something like that. It's a really small number compared to 35s that don't have the EPQ, and of course compared to the number of notes that are under this. So yeah, I'm a little bit proud of this one, that's for sure. Anytime you got a note that's from the 1860s with an EPQ designation, yeah, that's a little bit of a flex. That's number 9 on my list. Number 8, I have a graded 1923 silver certificate. This is a porthole note. One of the more famous silver certificates. It's the last large size $5 silver certificate you can get. This one is 1923, features Abraham Lincoln, and it features this round area around Lincoln, which we call the porthole. Looks like he's looking out of a porthole of a ship. The thing is, when the note was first made, people thought it was still too close to the time of Lincoln's assassination, and they were comparing it to looking down the barrel of a gun. An extremely popular note. What makes me proud, of course, is the fact that it's graded a 20, which, like I said, that's a good grade to have your expensive notes in, because first and foremost, 20 is a decent grade. You can see everything on the note. But secondly, most price guides will also list the price of a 20. So when you have a very fine 20, it's easy to determine the value on the particular note. And that's one thing I didn't really talk about. The $500 note, you're looking at about $1,700. The $1 note, that's about $1,325 or so. And my porthole, we're talking somewhere around $1,100 or so, something like that. Anyway, that's number 8. Number 7 on the list, coming in at a mere $2,000. Everybody's favorite educational. It's my 1896 $5, my 1896 $2 educational note. $2 educational note, graded 25. This one, the condition on it is really nice, really bright. I'm surprised it only got a 25 when it got graded. To have an educational graded, that can be a little pricey. I mean, not the grading portion, but a graded educational can get to be a little bit on the pricey side. Like I said, this one, you're talking about $2,000 in this particular grade. Any of the educationals are impressive. I was always impressed with this one, and this was the first educational I got a hold of. Not necessarily the more famous one, but still probably the least famous of the three educationals, which is why this one is harder to get. Anyway, that is number 7 on my list. 1896 $2 silver certificate, the educational note. Number 6. Going with another biggie. This is an 1886 $5 silver certificate. This is known as the Morganback. It is the first note to ever have "In God We Trust." Because it pictures the Morgan silver dollars on the back, that's why you have the phrase "In God We Trust." That was on there. It wasn't on notes until the 1950s, so it took another 70 years for that to be accomplished, which means that all the other notes I've shown so far have still been constitutional because they did not mix state and religion. Separation of church and state, right? Anyway, the Morganback 1886 $5 silver certificate. These, when you start talking about uncirculated, you're talking $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 without a problem. So to have one of these in any condition, yeah, I am quite proud of having this particular one. When I sent it off to get graded, they gave it a 15. They gave it a net. You're still talking a note that will book out for about $1,700 or so. So yeah, another note real proud to have, and a note that not very many people are going to have. All right, number 6 on the list. My 1901 $10 legal tender. Yes, another note that I sent off to get graded. The bison note. This is the bison. Features Lewis and Clark on it, and it has a bison. You have the bright red seal. You have the bright red numeral. The bison note on the back. Just an impressive piece of Americana. If that doesn't scream Old West and 1850s crossing the plains, I don't know what else does. That is just such an iconic note. Definitely one of the coolest looking notes that you're going to find. This is about $13.50 or so, somewhere in that range. So yeah, not only is it cool to look at, worth a little bit of money too. So definitely one of my flex notes. Number 4 on the list. Number 4, where'd it go? There it is my other educational. This is my 1896 $5 educational note. 1896 $5 educational note. I always call it the troublemaker note. It is one of the more beautiful notes out there. People will argue this is one of the most beautiful notes. I try not to say that because everybody's idea of beauty is slightly different. It's very easy to go with the group and say, yes, this is it, but you know, not necessarily my favorite note as far as it goes. Definitely looks nothing like currency, that's for sure. I'm not knocking the note at all, but I know bringing this note out definitely gets a lot of attention, especially because it's graded. Like I said, all of these notes on this list are going to be graded. These are my graded flex notes. The 1896 $5 silver certificate, in this condition, we're still talking about $1,750 on this particular note. That is number 4. Number 3, they are getting bigger. My Lazy Deuce, 1865 national currency. This particular one is Providence, Rhode Island, graded an 8. This is the Lazy Deuce. Now, national currency was prior to Federal Reserve notes and stuff like that. What would happen is banks used to print their own money, okay? And what happened is banks would go under, and people wouldn't know the banks went under, and they'd still be circulating the currency, even though the currency wasn't valid anymore. The federal government stepped in and started printing money, and that was all guaranteed by the federal government. But what they did was they had banks put money on deposit. And if your bank put money on deposit, what would happen is someone would come out and verify that your bank was not going to go under, and they would give it a charter number. That charter number This predates the charter numbers actually being on there, but this one has a charter number here of 1472. That charter number enabled that bank to be printed on money. So this is the American National Bank of Providence, Rhode Island. They are the bank that guaranteed the value of this particular note. That is a national banknote. And when you're talking about a national banknote from 1865, this is from the very first series of national banknotes, and it is the Lazy Deuce. You can see the two laying on its side like that. So yeah, heavy hitter here. You've got the eagle for US, and you've got the Rhode Island designation on this side. Yeah, really cool note. Like I said, not in the greatest of condition, but it doesn't have to be for how rare and how scarce this particular note is. Like this, you're talking about $2,250. Number 2 on my list, another note that just screams Americana, my 1899 $5 silver certificate, my chief note. Mine does have a little stain over here, but the rest of the note is spectacular. They gave it a 30 when they graded it. This chief note, I mean, just look at the detail that you can still make out 120 years later in the chief. That's just amazing. You check it out. The back is a little, not quite as nice. You can see it does have this hard crease here, but overall, you can see all the fibers in there. It does have a little crease here as well. They still gave this a 30, and that blew me away that they gave this a 30, because in a 30, you're talking about a $1,500 note. I don't have anywhere near that in this note, even when I include the price that I paid to have it graded. So yeah, pulling out a chief note, not very many people can do that, especially when it's a grade higher than 20. 20 and up, usually, like I said, with all these notes, you want a 20. The Lazy Deuce, there just aren't that many around there, and this is 2,200 even in that condition. So yeah, finding a note that's graded 30, that is definitely a flex note, one to show off with. And finally, number 1 on my list for this week, I believe this is the most expensive note I have. It is my 1923 $10 legal tender, graded a 20. This is the poker chip. The poker chip note got its name from the 2 giant circles on the back. You can see the ray figure here. You can see the loops here making those poker chips. When you look at them close, they're not poker chips, but at a distance, they certainly do have the reminiscence of poker chips. 1923 $10 legal tender note. Most expensive note in my collection. Very tough note to get a hold of. This one is sitting in this condition at a 20. Books out at about $3,000. So yeah, this one's a monster. This is definitely a monster. The most expensive note in my collection. Hard to get a hold of. If it's in your collection, I would guess it's probably one of the most expensive notes that you have. The trick is to get one in your collection. Anyway, that is my top 10 graded flex notes. Whenever you want to show off, you pull out a stack like this. Any one of these is enough to make somebody's jaw drop when you put them all together. I didn't total it, but oh yeah, I did. What do I have? Somewhere a little over almost $18,000 sitting right there. Anyway, that's what I've got for you guys this week. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading your comments, and I'll talk to you again next week.